Being a documentary cinematographer is a powerful responsibility. We're allowed access into people's deeply personal lives to translate that to a greater audience. We're trusted to both emotionally communicate those moments while also being an objective, silent observer. Over time, we can become steeped in the emotional and often traumatic weight of our experiences, whether by absorbing it from the accounts of our subjects or experiencing it firsthand. We can end up bearing the burden of that trauma as well. To be good at this job, you need to be good at compartmentalization. It's what keeps us going through the difficult moments. But leaving these experiences stored away will eventually lead to greater issues. And unfortunately, many of us don't take the time to process that weight that can have a significant impact on our mental health. Instead of bottling everything up inside to appear strong and unaffected, we instead need to find ways to cope, both in the moment and in the years that follow. In this video, I want to address mental health as a cinematographer, a prevalent problem within our community that so often goes overlooked, as well as offer up some tips for taking care of yourself throughout the entire process. Documentary cinematographers, arguably more than any other crew person, feel the immediate impact of trauma from the subjects they follow, as well as trauma they experience themselves while covering a story. As the person capturing these moments in real time, in the room, we're the frontline medium in which these conversations and experiences pass through. We don't have the ability to walk away or even look away when things become difficult. And this can add up significantly over time. Whether it's because we're constantly moving from job to job with little time in between, or instead having long dry spells that can accelerate stress. We don't have the proper support from production, or worse yet, feel stigmatized about talking about it with friends, family, and colleagues. These challenges need to be addressed before they become a problem. Ultimately, there are two clear types of trauma that we can experience. There's firsthand trauma, like being on the ground in a conflict zone, or there's secondhand or vicarious trauma, where you absorb that trauma through the subjects describing it. Sometimes there's an immediate impact on your well-being, but other times it can take days, months, or even years for the effects to come to the surface. Some of the key symptoms that these are having impacts on your mental health can come in the form of shortness of temper, feeling frustrated and bored with so-called normal activities with your family and friends, and depression. But they can also have significant impacts on your physical health as well. Things like chronic fatigue, addiction, development of autoimmune diseases, back pain, inability to sleep, and loss of appetite. To quote a dear friend of mine and a fellow documentary cinematographer, Jenny Morello, she says, "Our jobs require us to be empathy sponges, and eventually the sponge becomes full." So how can we begin to wring out that sponge? I think the first step to being able to manage trauma on a project is first being aware that you can experience it. You shouldn't hide away from the fact that you're going to absorb some of what's being explored in that project. First and foremost, I think that there should be support from the production. And, unfortunately, we're not quite at the level of having that on every job, but also remember that it can just come from within yourself. You need to be aware of what you're walking into so that you have the opportunity to start to understand and process those experiences. Have a proper conversation with your fellow crew members about what potentially could develop through the shoot. Just by recognizing difficulty will help you all identify when someone is having a hard time and can either offer to talk or just find a way to take a break. Having each other's back and knowing that you aren't going through it alone is a huge first step. In the moment, remember to breathe. And I'm not talking about regular breath. I'm talking about a nice, deep breath. Because in stressful situations, you can go a long time without ever taking one. And this is not only going to calm you down in the moment, but it's also just going to help ground you. And doing this regularly throughout the day can be incredibly helpful. Try doing some breathing exercises that can also be incredibly helpful for calming yourself down. A particularly useful one that I do on a regular basis is 4-7-8. Take a deep breath in for 4 seconds. Hold it for 7, and then deeply exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. And if you do this repeatedly for a few minutes, it does an incredible job at both calming you down and helping to clear your head. Shoot days are incredibly stressful. And when you start to add some of the experiences that we're talking about here on top of that, it can be really difficult to find times to just take a break. So if you need those times, please communicate that to production, because it really is important in the moment to be able to just to take a minute to kind of come down from what you just saw and allow yourself to keep going. But at the end of the day, at the very least, make sure that you schedule some good quiet time, that you can just allow your thoughts to roll through your head, start to process those feelings that you experienced. Remember, you don't have to go out to dinner with the crew at the end of a particularly heavy day, but just take that time for yourself. Be sure to ask your other crew members how they're doing. By acknowledging that someone else could be feeling the same way that you are, offers the chance to have a real conversation about it. It's important to know that you're not alone, because those conversations with people who've had similar experiences can be hugely beneficial. And keep these conversations up, even after filming's wrapped. Make sure that you have periodic check-ins with each other. It can be incredibly helpful. If at all possible, try to schedule some downtime immediately after a difficult shoot. Make sure that you allow some time for recovery. And in that time, don't just sit and roll over what's happened in your mind, but instead schedule activities that can bring you back to the reality of your life. Do things you enjoy doing. Spend quality time with your family and friends. Reacquaint yourself to the life that you live outside of work. Find activities that allow your mind to wander. Something like running can offer a great space to do a lot of thinking, which can both help in recognizing and processing what you've been through. It'll also give your body some much needed exercise, which is going to have a huge impact on both your mental health and your physical health. Lastly, there's therapy. Talking to colleagues about your shared experiences can be incredibly helpful, but it can also only take you so far. Because effectively, you're both there to help each other, which is wonderful and incredibly helpful, but it also doesn't allow time for just yourself. But when you talk with a licensed therapist, their sole purpose is to focus on you, which is going to have the greatest impact on processing those experiences. I'm so thankful that the conversation around mental health is starting to become more commonplace in our industry. Because I feel like for the longest time, we were just expected to stay strong and push through it, with little help or acceptance of what we've gone through. But there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. I hope in the future that there are steps put in place for better support on projects that cover difficult subject matter, and that people are able to talk openly about the challenges of the job. I've put some links in the description to resources that are worth looking into. There's a deeply personal and moving essay written by my friend Jenny Morello that was published in the International Documentary Association's Documentary Magazine. There's an article in IndieWire about the unspoken traumas of the filmmaking community, and there's a link to Documentality, which is an incredible initiative whose aim is to create dialogue and collaborative change around mental health that's facing the documentary community. Ultimately, if you're struggling with challenges that we face daily in our job, then seek the help that you need, because you can't expect to do your job if you don't take care of yourself first. I hope there's some helpful tips in here for you as you start to figure out how to better process the experiences that you've had. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to take care of yourself.